Hey, fanatics! Welcome to the Psalm of Fan of podcast, where people from different fandoms come together to share why they love what they love.
And sometimes hate what they hate.
I'm your host, Kaiser Brown.
And I'm your co-host, Sabrina Gill. Oh, so, Kaiser, what are we talking about today?
So, I'm a fan of the Archies. Let's get into it. We've all heard that famous song, right? You know, sugar. Oh, honey, honey. You're my candy girl. And you got me wanting you. You know, it's one of those songs that's like famously etched into like pop culture. Sabrina, you heard the song, right? You heard Sugar Sugar.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you remember like any time, I don't know, when was the last time you can remember hearing Sugar Sugar?
So actually, my grandmother. So keep in mind, my family's relatively younger, but my grandmother actually listened to that like kind of genre, if you will, of music. So I definitely feel like I remember like sitting at her house and we were working on some kind of game 'cause she loved board games and just hearing it along with some other funk tunes, like grandmas do, educating their grandchildren on culture.
Okay, so
But I didn't know it was the Archies, though, at the time. I'm the worst when it comes to remembering the artist of, like, a song.
Okay, so if you can't remember the artist, I'm still gonna ask you this hard question. Can you name the members of the Archies? There are 5 members. One of them is a redhead, so you must be able to name him. Give me a guess.
I got no clues, Kaiser. I'm new to this world. Why are you gonna put me on the spot like that?
Here's another hint. One of the names is in the band name.
What?
The Archies.
Archie? Oh, great. I love that. Archie, yeah.
Archie. Okay. So who do you think the other 5 are?
I don't know. You said so obviously from the Archie universe, right?
Archie Universe, think Riverdale. You ever
What?
seen Riverdale?
I've seen a little bit of it, not a
Mhm.
lot. My
So do you
stepmom is a real Netflix watcher, and so I'll, like, pop in if she's watching something I wanna spend time with her, but I don't actively watch.
Okay, well, who's the blonde character? Do you know who the blonde character? Who do you know who she is?
Is so Sabrina? I don't
Not Sabrina
I
the
don't
Teenage Witch, though she
no,
is in the
no.
Archie comics world.
I was about to say, that's the only one I, like,
2 of them are his love
semi-watched.
interests. 2 of them are his love interests. The blonde and
That's
the
makes it
brunette.
even worse, I don't
The
know no
blonde and the brunette that's always mentioned in pop culture. Just name some random names. Name 4 random names and we can see. Just see if you
no,
can
I don't wanna do this,
name 4
Kaiser.
random names, Sabrina. It's okay. If you're wrong, you're
This is
wrong.
co-host abuse.
Oh my god.
Let me just Google it, give me one sec, let me
Oh gosh, it's Archie, Betty, Veronica, Jughead, and Reggie.
I could've probably only guessed Jughead, and that's just 'cause I know he's one of the main characters in
All
Riverdale.
5. They are the core 5 of the Archie comics world. Archie, Betty, Veronica, Reggie, and Jughead. They are in the Archie's band, okay?
Mm.
So whenever you see an Archie's comic cover, you'll usually see those 5 or at least 4 of them on there. Usually you'll see them with Reggie, or sometimes Reggie's not on the cover because they like to say the core 4, but it's really the core 5. They tried to replace him a little bit with, what's his name? Kevin Keller, but he just doesn't have that staying power like Reggie does. So it's always Reggie, okay? So just remember it. The Archies is those 5.
I'll totally remember that.
Maybe we should just get into the history of Sugar Sugar.
Yes, educate me.
So the song was produced by Jeff Barry and first appeared on the animated television series. Can you guess the name of the animated television series of the fictional band? Sabrina, just give a guess.
No. The Archies? Oh.
The Archies, that's right. Hold up, she got it right. Well, Kaiser, you may be asking me, I thought you said these characters were from the comics. Well, yes, they are from the comics, but it's a TV show based off the comics. Like, think Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Riverdale, Katie Keene, all of those are based off the Archie Comics universe, and all of those feature the Archie Comics characters. Riverdale features both Katie Keene and Sabrina the Teenage Witch. So, and they're all in the same universe. That's why you see the crossover sometimes.
Mhm.
But those aren't the only shows that feature Archie characters. Some include Josie and the Pussycats, Archie's Funhouse, Superhero Kindergarten, you know, the Sabrina the Teenage Witch show, and my personal favorite, Archie's Weird Mysteries. We need to watch that for an episode one day. The show typically revolved around the gang and their adventures, with episodes consisting of 2 8-minute stories, a Dance of the Week segment, and a 3-minute musical segment, and also a Jughead joke segment. Not sure if those were funny because never really watched full episodes. It only lasted for 17 episodes, but it was popular enough to spawn several spin-offs due to its success. In fact, it was so popular that due to its laugh track, other Saturday morning cartoons began to use the same thing up until the early 1980s. Can you give me an example of 1 or 2 cartoons, Sabrina, that may have used the laugh track after the Archies?
Laugh track?
Laugh track. Cartoons in, like, the 60s
Ooh,
and
that's
70s use a
hard.
lot of laugh tracks.
I don't know. So, part of me wants to say Scooby-Doo, but I don't think it's
Mhm.
not that young, is it?
It
Oh,
is
okay.
Scooby-Doo,
I was gonna say,
Scooby-Doo.
'cause I didn't know if it was that old, but I was like, "No, I feel like
Mhm.
my mom was watching Scooby-Doo when she was young."
Everybody
So,
watched
yeah,
Scooby-Doo when they were young.
Scooby-Doo.
Scooby-Doo. Give me one more. Let me think. It's
Ooh, that next one's gonna be hard.
dun dun dun
Mm.
dun 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 dun
That's
dun
not gonna give me no
dun
hints,
dun
Kaiser.
dun 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 dun
Yeah,
dun
no, it
dun.
ain't gonna help me.
His boy Elroy. Dun 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 dun.
Yeah, no.
The
Um,
Flintstones,
okay.
the Jetsons, all those
Okay, I was
shows.
gonna say
Forget
the
about girl.
Jetsons, but I was like, I wasn't sure. Wait, I
Yes,
thought you said it was 2. What about the Flintstones?
the
That's 2 different shows. Flintstones and the Jetsons are 2 very polar opposites.
they're not because first of all, both of them are family sitcoms. The only difference between them is that one takes place in the future and the other takes place in a prehistoric past.
Yes, but you said there was only 2 shows. So I said
No, I
Scooby-Doo,
said,
and
can
you
you
said
no, I said, can you name 2 shows that they're
oh,
only
okay, I'm sorry, okay? I got selective hearing too, I guess. Sheesh.
Mhm. The Flintstones and the Jetsons, they did kinda come out if from what I can remember, came out before the Archies, but those were broadcast during prime time, which means those shows were for adults, the Flintstones and the Jetsons, so they don't count,
Mm,
okay? So move your caveman car somewhere else, Barney. I just want to use those as examples as cartoon shows that use laugh track. So now the most notable aspect about this show wasn't the writing or the characters or the comedy or the voice cast? No. The most notable part of the Archie show was can you guess? Can you guess? Can you guess?
the music.
The music. That's right? Okay. You see, you smart, Sabrina. See, the Archie show was meant to emulate the show The Monkeys. Have you ever heard of the show The Monkeys?
No,
Okay.
Imma say.
So that's a whole nother can of worms. But basically, The Monkeys was a show that included rock music in each episode of the show. It was fictional.
Mm,
It had a fictional rock band. They played music. So the process to create the show went like this. Filmation, the animation studio would tell Don Kirshner, who, by the way, also wrote songs for the Monkey Show, what they wanted to work on with the show and what they want the attitude to be and what they were writing on the stories on the show, right? So he would then
mhm,
go and work on the songs and deliver them to the studio with the help of Norm Prescott, the founder of Filmation. And while we all know the Archies as this wonderful band that they are, the characters obviously couldn't actually perform the songs. They had to get real life people to voice them.
yeah,
So, they got real life people to voice the characters, obviously. And the song Sugar Sugar was co-written by Andy Kim and Jeff Barry. They also did the background vocals for a lot of the songs for the Archies. So the vocals as a whole throughout the entire band were provided by Ron Dante and Tony Wine, with the group releasing several real-life albums and singles, Sugar Sugar being one of them. Tony Wine and Ron Dante were doing background voice work and commercials in New York when Don Kirshner brought them onto the project. Wine voiced
mhm,
Betty and Veronica, while Ron, who went by Ronnie, voiced Archie. So Archie, Betty, and Veronica are the ones that usually give the vocals. Reggie does too.
mhm,
Jughead just plays the drums. Okay, so everybody sing, but you know, Jughead. But you can't really tell because it's literally just 2 people singing all the songs for the most part, with like 2 other
mhm.
people doing background vocals. According to Andy Kim, he said, and I quote, I had no idea what was going on except a lot of people were putting the song and the record down as if it was fluff, as if it didn't mean anything. There was no value to it. He says at first stations wouldn't play it, but when they did, all of a sudden Sugar Sugar was a hit. So you might be asking Sabrina, what about Sugar Sugar? How did it become so popular? You're asking that question, right, Sabrina?
Oh my gosh, Kaiser, what is Sugar Sugar and how did it become so popular?
Yes, you also might be asking, how did it go from being a song performed in a cartoon to becoming the most successful bubblegum pop single of all time and Billboard's Hot 100's #1 song of that year? It's simple, really. By removing the label vinyl. That's right. Due to the moderate success of the Archies' previous single, Feeling So Good, aka Scooby Doo, the label was removed from the record and taken to the top radio station KYA in San Francisco, where, and I quote, the program director was told, just play it. It's a mystery group. And the rest is
Yeah.
history. That's how Sugar Sugar got popular. The song spent 22 weeks in the Billboard Hot 100, with 4 of those weeks, September 20th to October 11th, at the #1 spot. It's also the only animated group to reach those heights without ever being performed on stage. Now you know where the song came from. Till this day, it's still being used in the wider media. It even has the theme on song. If you ever seen the show Cake Boss, you remember that show? You ever seen Cake Boss?
Yes.
That they use that as a theme song to a few of their seasons. I remember that because my family used to love Cake Boss. Oh my gosh. And the comics mention it often too. Now you know why they also played that song in Riverdale. Thank you, everybody, for learning about Sugar Sugar. Now to the trivia question.
Okay, fanatics, it's trivia time. Let's see if you can guess the right answer. Besides Sugar Sugar, which of these songs by the Archies on the Billboard Hot 100 is the highest ranking? A. Sunshine. B. Feeling So Good, aka Scooby Doo. C. Jingle Jangle. D. Bang Shang a Lang. If you can get this one right, you really are an Archies fan. Find out the answer at the end of the episode.
And we're back, everyone. Wasn't that so interesting learning about Sugar Sugar, Sabrina?
Of course, always.
Yeah. Your opinions don't matter. So now I wanna ask you a question. Have you ever heard of the comic series She's Josie?
I have not.
Okay, have you ever heard of It's Josie?
Nope.
Have you ever heard of Josie?
Not necessarily, though I do know of a little group called Josie and the Pussycats.
Josie and the Pussycats, OMG, guess what we're talking about right now? That's right,
Oh my
Josie and
god.
the Pussycats. Yes, we're gonna talk about the history of them because I wanted this episode to be all Archie-centric. Okay, so when you think of Josie and the Pussycats, you might think one of 3 things. Let me know if you think one of these things. The animated series and its sequel, Josie and the Pussycats in Outer Space, the 2001 movie, or the 2017 show Riverdale. Did you think one of those things, Sabrina? At least one of them?
Mhm.
Mhm,
Yeah.
which one
I
was it?
feel like the original series in passing in media, I've seen it, and then definitely Riverdale again. My stepmom loves binging shows, and that was definitely one of her jams.
Mhm. The Josie and the Pussycats and them were interesting because they were all black group. It was very interesting
Mhm.
seeing that, though they hardly used them. Anyway,
Oh, no.
you're probably wondering, Sabrina, how did this franchise start, right?
Mhm.
So ask the question.
Oh my gosh, Kaiser, how did this amazing franchise even start?
When did these characters become such a cultural phenomenon?
When did they become such a s phenomenon?
What happened to Josie's long lost best friend and that one boyfriend she had before Alan M?
Wait, what? Her boyfriend and her best friend ran off together? When?
Join us on this journey as we find out. So, Josie Jones, or James, but mostly known as Josie McCoy, was created and published in the 1960s by cartoonist Dan DiCarlo. This is around the time where he was working for Atlas Comics, which was previously known as Timely Comics and is now known as the famous comics group Let me see if you know the name. There's only 2 possible answers.
DC Comics,
Nope.
Marvel Comics.
Marvel Comics.
Oh
That's
my
right.
gosh.
Marvel
Damn.
Comics. Did you know that Marvel didn't start off as Marvel? Let me ask you that.
I wouldn't be surprised. Most
Mhm.
large groups that survive now were, like, appropriated from poor, smaller corporations who couldn't afford to stay open that were later bought out by, schmucks.
Mhm. And before Marvel Comics became Marvel Comics, they had comics such as the Captain America comics, that's right. That was before he was even a part of Avengers. The Submariner comics, Namor, the sexy man off Black Panther, the sexy man off Black Panther. I
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
I
Kaiser,
didn't
we
mean it
both
like
know.
that. No, see, that's not what I meant like that. Ah, crap.
Mhm,
What I
mhm, mhm,
said and
mhm.
what and Marvel Tales, okay? And Marvel Tales. Like, okay, so he worked most
Anyway.
Dan DeCarlo worked mostly on Dan DeCarlo worked mostly on teen and career girl humor comics in the 50s, such as Millie the Model, and co-created Willie Lumpkin, a comic strip about a mail carrier who found himself in wacky situations on his regular mail delivery route in a town called Glenville. This character would eventually later be used as a recurring character in the Fantastic Four. Bet you didn't know that. Yes, that's true. So Marvel had a history of taking characters that they used in the past, like Captain America, Willie Lumpkin, and Namor, and then putting them in their more modern comics once World War II and stuff ended. So they appeared in the
Mhm,
Fantastic Four, obviously, the Avengers for Captain America. Once they started that all out. So by the early 60s, DeCarlo began to almost fully transition to the Archie comics world due to Atlas having financial problems. And so while pitching various different strips and ideas in the 50s, he came up with an idea to create a new character inspired by his wife. So Sabrina, let me ask you, who do you think this character was that he created?
Josie.
Joseph. Oh my gosh, yes, that's correct. Yes. So he decided that maybe he could use his wife as a basis for this daily comic strip called Here's Josie. And as he recalled in 2001, when Publishers Syndicate in Chicago got interested in Willie Lumpkin, I was also hustling my own strip and trying to get it published. Before we got to the Publishers Syndicate, I went to the United Feature in New York with 2 strips, Barney's Beat and Josie. United Feature told me that they liked them both and that they like to use more samples because I didn't bring much. I brought maybe 6 dailies of Josie. That posed a problem for me. I knew I couldn't handle both strips and still keep up with the comic book work because a syndicated bit was risky. So I decided to shelve Josie and concentrated on Willie Lumpkin. Probably because of sexism. Not true. Not true. But when that strip ended after
Mhm.
a year, maybe a year and a half, don't make that face. As DeCarlo recalled in 2001, when that strip ended after a year, maybe a year and a half, I quickly submitted the Josie strip back to the publishers and Harold Anderson. And he sent it back and said, "It's not what we're looking for, Dan, but keep up the good work." Or words of that kind. Then, when I decided to take it to Archie to see if they could do it as a comic book, I showed it to Richard Goldwater, and he showed it to his father. And a day or two later, I got the okay to do it as a comic book. Wow, isn't that interesting? By 1963, after a couple of other shenanigans, including her appearance in Archie's Pals and Gals number 23 in 1962, because y'all know I do the research, I went all the way back in this stuff. Archie decided to give Josie her own title called, can you guess the title?
Josie and the Pussycats. Oh my gosh.
No, you're wrong. She's Josie.
Oh, damn.
I knew you were gonna do that.
I was
With the
robbed. I was robbed.
yeah, with DeCarlo on board creating and designing the book and its characters. Now, Sabrina, I want to ask you, since
Mhm.
Josie and the Pussycats didn't start off as Josie and the Pussycats, what type of comic do you think that it first started off as? Like, give me like a pitch of what you think it might have been.
I'm sure homegirl was just living her daily life, trying to live her best as a day-to-day woman. We knew it was based off of the writer's wife, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So it was probably very much, like, referenced by her and maybe, like, small acts of what could be, like, considered entertainment or heroism that can be found in the mundane life. At least that's my theory. That or it's gonna be something completely out of left field, and it's gonna be something crazy.
Well, I'm here to tell you that you are pretty correct. Yes. So the
Ooh.
comic, yes, featured Josie, the redhead that we all know and love, along with her equally famous friends, the ditzy Melody, the twins Alexander, aka Alex Kappa III, and his twin sister Alexandria, along with Pepper. Wait, who's Pepper? Sabrina, do you know who Pepper is?
Is that not the seasoning on my table?
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
No. Pepper
Wasn't
is
that dude on Blue's Clues? His wife with his wife and his child.
Pepper is a brainy yet cynical brunette, and she was Josie's best friend. And along with her, she had her brawny yet ditzy boyfriend, Socrates, aka Sock. And Josie also had a different boyfriend that isn't her famous boyfriend, Alan M. Do you think you know who her old boyfriend's name is? It starts with an A, so give me a random A name.
Archie.
Archie. I said no, no, not Archie. Give me another A name. Man, I didn't think about that.
Adam,
That makes sense.
Alex.
Alex? No,
Oh my
Alex.
god.
Try one more time. A character that I did not name.
What? I don't know. Austin.
Austin. Girl, isn't it? Okay, you know what? Albert.
Oh,
Albert.
so the butler from Batman.
So no, that's Alfred. Oh my god.
Wait, dyslexic.
That has nothing to do with dyslexia. What? You don't even read comics like that, do you?
I
So
know I don't.
you watch. Do you? Did you just hear? You know what? I'm not gonna tell you how your brain works. That's your brain. Use if that's your dyslexia, that's your dyslexia.
My best friend would kill me right.
Oh
It's like
my
when she
god.
made me watch Star Wars and I just started listing off the names of all the people who I didn't know what they looked like and I just shouted this.
Let's get back on track. So Sabrina, do you remember all those comic book titles that I mentioned earlier?
Oh, yes.
So it's Josie, Josie, here's Josie, blah, 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 blah. Well, yeah. So there are no Josie and the Pussycats until December 1969. So if Josie came out in 1962 and Josie and the Pussycats didn't happen until 1969, then you had a whole bunch of years where Josie was just living her life as a regular teenage girl. So what we got is basically a female version of Archie. She had her love shenanigans. She had her best friends. They went to school. And it lasted for a while with the title changing from She's Josie to Josie, starting with issue number 17. And it crossed over with Archie's characters, starting with like issue number 9. But, you know, as we can tell, it didn't last for too long, right? So,
Mhm.
what is the comic strip about? Well, like other Archie comics, it focused on the teenage lives of his main characters, like we said earlier, whom were at that point a redhead, a brunette, and a blonde. So 3 white chicks. And their wacky adventures. Pepper was cynical and known for her sharp wit, while Melody was often given comedic plots that focused on her beauty, how boys would uncontrollably fawn over her, and her obliviousness towards all of it, which would often lead to utter chaos. Like they say, blondes have more fun, am I right?
This sounds very, very,
Yeah.
unkind and unfair to blondes.
I mean, sure.
Discrimination on this
I'll dye my
podcast.
when I dye my hair blonde, then I'll be nicer to blondes. How about that?
Oh, I think you look cute with blonde hair.
Thank you. The thing about Melody in the comics too is that she also never really talked. Do you know how she communicated?
How?
She sung
Oh.
everything. So if you ever seen the Josie and the Pussycats TV show, Melody
Mhm.
is ditzy. She real ditzy, and she, kinda has a tune to her voice, but she speaks. She don't be singing everything. Melody in the comic books, every single word out of her mouth is a song. So, I
Mm,
mean, her
mm.
vocal cords must be really strong if you get what I'm saying, because she just sings everything, and I just find that very interesting. Anyways, Josie also was just a sweet, level-headed girl. She was the most average of the bunch. She went to Midvale High. She was mid and went to Midvale High. I'm sorry, Josie, I love you.
Boo.
She went to Midvale High School with her besties and her boyfriend, Albert. So, Sabrina, you might be asking the question, what about Albert, right?
Sure, Albert.
Yeah. What about him? Ask a question,
What
Sabrina.
about Albert?
That's right. What about Albert? Well, as I mentioned earlier, the early Josie comics featured 3 other main characters in the 60s: Albert, Pepper, and Sock. So before the Pussycats era, Albert was portrayed as Josie's boyfriend, who was a member of the
Mhm.
1960s counterculture who loved playing guitar and singing. So he was the original singer in the comic. Sock, on the other hand, was Pepper's boyfriend, but as she was highly intelligent, he was not. So he lasted. It's funny because he lasted a little longer than the other two. Because
Mm.
starting with Josie number 42, the characters were dropped off the face of the earth until the 2000s, where they made very minor cameos and then they were never seen again.
Dang.
Except for Pepper, because she came back in a Katie Keene TV series that lasted only 1 season. And,
Mhm.
like, she came in the comics, like, for, like, this Archie and Katie Keene crossover, but after that, she has not returned. Poor
R.I.P.
Pepper. They don't like Pepper, they just love them some salt maybe, I don't know. Mm.
I know, I was
So
about to say, she changed shows, okay?
uh
She found a better career.
mhm. Well, in Katie Keene, I forgot when that show came out, 2019 or something, 2020. She was a con artist, so she's doing something with her
Oh.
life. Yeah, yeah. So in issue number 42, they also introduced Josie's new love interest. So Josie, I don't think ever officially breaks up with Albert. He just disappears. And then Alan M. Mayberry comes in, a tall, blonde, muscular white guy who serves as the Pussycats roadie. What were you about to say?
I said nothing.
What?
You were just describing it, and I was like, "Dang,
A tall,
a
blonde,
bar."
muscular white guy. Like, that's literally the
Yeah.
most average comic book character that you could
I'm
think
not
of.
saying he's attractive, I'm just saying he's definitely, one of many.
One of many, exactly. Just like Melody. Sorry, sis.
R.I.P.
By issue number 45, though, everything changed. So for like 3 more issues, it stayed a slice of life. But not for long. Because not only were there new characters, but a new title. No longer was it called Josie. The comic became known as, you know the answer, Sabrina? What was it known as?
Josie. No, Josie and the Pussycats?
Josie and the Pussycats. Yes. And along with a new story that was being told, there was a new
Mhm.
character introduced to the Josie comics. So, Sabrina, if we had Josie, Melody, and Pepper, with Pepper removed, what female character took her place? Can you guess her name? It starts with a
No.
V. V. Do you know?
Veronica?
Veronica. No, Veronica is it's a character that I have not named.
Kaiser, you're asking a lot from me.
Yes.
Valerie. That's the only
Valerie.
other name.
Valerie Brown. Valerie Brown. Look, how'd you guess? Did you
That's
search
the
it up
only other
amongst?
B name.
Yes.
No, that's the only other B name I know that's for a woman.
Yes.
Well, I guess I know a couple more, but they're more vague, like androgynous. But
Yes.
dang, I got it.
Valerie Brown is the new girl in school who plays the bass for the newly formed band. Do you want to know how Josie and the Pussycats came together?
How
Okay.
did they come together?
So, due to Alexandria's lack of talent and wanting to name the band Alexandria's Cool Time Cats, Josie and Melody instead decided to recruit the Black Queen herself, Valerie Brown, and created leopard print band uniforms and performed at school dances while later becoming worldwide sensations. So, they literally were just a high school band who replaced the girl with the skunk hair and said, hey, let's use this black chick with the last name Brown.
I was about to
And
say, how original is I
I
hate
mean, the Yellow Ranger is Asian and the Black Ranger is black, but that wasn't intentional. It really wasn't, which is very interesting. I don't know how they got to that. Apparently, I think the Black Ranger said his favorite color was black, so he wanted to be the Black Ranger. I don't know how they made it. Why they thought like Asian Ranger yellow, but then the Asian Ranger, Trini, she wasn't originally Asian. I don't think she was Latina, but still, that's not any better because she was still yellow. Hmm.
It's just all 50 Shades of
It's
messed up.
like the yeah, it's like the unintentional racism or intentional. I don't know, but that's from what I heard. I think his favorite color was black, but Valerie Brown. So from then on, the comic switched from a slice of life high school comedy to a comic revolved around the band traveling around the world to perform gigs, deal with teenage life, and live their best lives as a group along with their friends. So, Sabrina, I want to ask you, do you know where the famous Pussycats motif came from?
No, I do not.
I know you don't because you're not as educated as I am. We'll let
Cool.
Josie, the person who inspired Josie McCoy, tell us herself. In a quote, of course. We were going on a cruise. I had a friend, a French girlfriend, who was so beautiful, she made me a costume that was the Pussycat costume. On a cruise, many times they had the little carnival night. When I talked to Dan about it, I was thinking of having this cat costume. The cat with the spots. He thought it was a good idea. And when I came in the costume, he actually decided that it should be made a little bit sexier. I had a hat with I had a hat with a point on the forehead, cut around the eyes. He thought it was very nice, but it covered my whole head, and he decided that he would just use the ears. When we had the whole costume together, that was when Josie was created, actually with the style of that costume. Interesting story, huh? Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
So after that, the rest was, well, history. Well, kinda. Because we didn't get to why the comic was redeveloped in the first place. So in 1968, the world was introduced to the first Archie-based Saturday morning cartoon. Sabrina, do you know what that cartoon was called?
Not a clue, Kaiser.
The Archies, the Archie show. Um,
Mm.
so it was a big hit. And long story short, it produced a very popular song. Do you know the song?
I thought, is it Sugar Sugar?
Yes, Sugar Sugar. And Hanna-Barbera,
What?
oh my gosh, you're so smart. Hanna-Barbera, the hit animation studio, reached out to Archie Comics in order to adapt one of their comics. And Archie decided that they could redevelop the Josie comic into one about a teenage band, which would allow Hanna-Barbera to create a music-based show. Not only did they want to ride off the coattail of Archie and his pals, they also decided to ride off the coattails of their most famous property. Can you name Hanna-Barbera's most famous property?
No.
Their most famous property. Like the one that has never stopped. Still going. New movies every year. New shows. Several of them.
Scooby Doo.
Scooby-Doo. Yes. Due to this, character roles and personalities were changed. While Josie remained practically unchanged, other characters had attributes that were either played up more or completely changed. Melody's ears would now wiggle whenever the group were in dangerous situations, and she will often get brainwashed. I don't know what they're trying to say about the Ditsy Blonde, but they said it, okay? Valerie, while already smart in the comics, was even more so in the series due to her street smarts and her mechanical and scientific genius because she is the black queen that saves everybody. Why black women always gotta save people? But that's a whole nother conversation. And then Alexander, whom in the comics is much more like his sister, as in flirtatious, flamboyant, conceited, and manipulative, he's much friendlier, but also a bit more cowardly. So basically, he's like the Shaggy of the group. not just in personality, but also in voice, because the man who voiced Shaggy in the Scooby-Doo cartoon also voiced Alexander in the Josie and the Pussycats cartoon. And Alexandria, well, she was the same, the exact same. So they just made the two polar opposites instead of the same type of character. And Alan M is also similar to how Fred Jones was portrayed in the 60s and the early 70s, which means he was now the leader of the group and kept everyone together. Unlike Fred, he was not replaced in the 70s, when Daphne decided to take the leadership role, because he disappeared after that. But
Dang.
and she's the better leader. You heard me say that, but we'll get to a history of Daphne episode one day. These similarities to Scooby-Doo didn't just end there, because in 1973, an episode of the new Scooby-Doo movies called The Haunted Showboat premiered. What do you think this episode was about?
Actually, I feel like I watched this episode. Wasn't that like where it was like the steamboat on the river and it was haunted and they had to go investigate?
And
I
who
love that.
else? The Scooby-Doo gang, and who else? It was the new
Oh,
Scooby-Doo movies.
wasn't
They had
Josie and the
celebrities.
Pussycats, right?
It was Josie and the Pussycats, correct. So not only did they be meta with like using the same character archetypes for the Jolie show, they took those characters and brought them in the hour-long new Scooby-Doo movie show and put them in there. Because if anyone knows, the new Scooby-Doo movies was an hour-long show, unlike the regular Scooby-Doo shows, which were like your 30-minute syndicated shows. I used to love watching that show when I was younger. So the Josie and the Pussycat show lasted for 16 episodes and then got a sequel series set in outer space. What do you think that show was called, Sabrina?
Josie and the Pussycats in Outer Space.
Correct, yes.
Oh, so hard. I know.
Yes, and that's when they went on a whole bunch of weird outer space adventures. The difference between the Scooby-Doo shows and the Josie and the Pussycat shows and a lot of Hanna-Barbera shows besides Scooby-Doo is that the monsters in these shows were actually real. They were really weird creepos. Like, they were really creepy. The Scooby-Doo, I think, was the most effective with it. Even though their monsters weren't real, their monsters looked the creepiest, and the atmosphere was like, if you really look at old Scooby-Doo, especially in the 60s, the atmosphere was creepy. You had the hand-painted backgrounds. The music, they really were trying to play up that kind of semi-horror angle, but for kids. And then you had Josie and the Pussycats and all those other shows doing the same thing, but with real monsters, and not it didn't have as big as an impact as we can tell now, seeing as Scooby-Doo has a new show like almost every few years and a new like one or two movies every year now by this point, right? But not only was Josie and the Pussycats a show that went from Earth to space, it also had the first regularly appearing Black female character in Saturday morning cartoons ever, that being Valerie Brown. The show overall was an amalgamation of other shows by Hanna-Barbera, like I said, Scooby-Doo, Johnny Quest, Space Ghost, and Shazam. And of course, it included music. We all know the iconic Josie and the Pussycat song. Can you sing a little bit for us, Sabrina?
No.
Because you can't sing, or just because you don't know the song?
Yes. I'm not looking to make people's ears bleed and get us sued.
Josie and the Pussycats, long tails and ears for hats, guitars for sharps and flats, neat street, a groovy song, you're invited, come along. Hurry, hurry. The Josie and the Pussycat songs. You ever heard that song?
Some of us aren't as talented as you, Kaiser. I need you to
Talented
like
as
realize
what do you
this.
mean?
Because you just sang that and it was good.
Oh,
if it was me, we would have been screwed.
Yeah, I didn't even do my vocal exercise today. Thank you very much. Wow. Thank you. But yes, so you had that theme song. And if you guys never seen it, y'all need to search up that iconic Josie and the Pussycats music video that came out in the early 2000s when Boomerang was like really big. You know what Boomerang is, right, Sabrina? You know what Boomerang is?
Yes, I know a Boomerang.
Yes. The sister channel, the Cartoon Network, that was originally used to show a whole bunch of old Hanna-Barbera cartoons. And they did that for years. And they still do it to this day, but now they just show a whole bunch of newer stuff that shows that like they take off Cartoon Network, they just throw them on Boomerang. and they did this Josie and the Pussycat music video that had them going through like different eras and different like musical genres singing their theme song. It's so good. Oh, I love it so much. And though the show was short-lived, though, it always stays in people's hearts. Don't you think so, Sabrina? Isn't Josie and the
Oh,
Pussycats in
yeah.
your heart? Yes. Speaking of, we also have other form of Josie and the Pussycats media, of course. We have the 2001 movie starring Rachel Lee Cook, Tara Reid, and Rosario Dawson that has also become like a sort of cult classic. It reminds me of the Spice Girls movie. It's kind of like on that level of like fame. Like it's a band. Spice Girls was obviously a real band, but Josie and the Pussycats is
Yeah.
like that cult classic movie that people watch and people enjoy. And while we won't talk about it much, despite it being considered a flop at the time, it's now more fondly looked upon. And of course, after that, Josie and the Pussycats, along with their other Archie Comics brethren, continue to have a sort of relevance even today in today's cultural climate, starring in the show Riverdale, which just ended in 2023, although they were misused. Like, why cast 3 black women, make it an all-black group, and then hardly use them? They used Josie, but then her storylines weren't that good. I didn't even really watch Riverdale. I watched the first season and the last season. I watched, like, 2 episodes in between. One of them was when the comic came, and then they were all sent back to the 50s or whatever, and that's how the last season came about. The last season is set in the 50s. That's my favorite season of the show. And then the other episode is when Josie and the Pussycats came back, and they actually focused on the characters as a band because Valerie and Melody were literally background characters in that show. It was
Rip.
ridiculous. Like, why'd you do that? You cast them as all black and then don't use them. That's a whole nother conversation. But anyways, despite being poorly used in that show, they still appeared. But at least, like I said, we got the episode Return to Pussycats, which was actually good because it didn't focus on all the white people. And they also to this day regularly appear in the comics world with Archie and Friends and received a short-lived comic series in 2016. They had several comic series, and the Josie and the Pussycats lasted for a long time, but they stopped. They came back, they stopped, and then they came back. You know, they do that every now and then with like a few Archie comics. So that's the history of Josie and the Pussycats. Let's clap, everyone. Yay!
All right, fanatics. Did you figure out the answer? Here's a hint.
Sing me, sing me, sing me, sing me, sing me, baby.
Okay, so besides Sugar Sugar, which of these songs by the Archies on the Billboard Hot 100 is the highest ranking? A. Sunshine. B. Feeling So Good, aka Scooby-Doo. C. Jangle Jangle. D. Bang Shang-a-Lang. If you chose C, Jingle Jangle, then you really know your stuff. Jingle Jangle peaked at number 10 on the Billboard Hot 100. If you got it right, let us know in the Q&A response on the Spotify app. Now, back to the episode.
So, Sabrina, how did you feel about this lesson? Did you learn something new about Sugar Sugar or Josie and the Pussycats or both?
Yes, I learned everything. I was an
Mm.
utter noob when I walked in here today,
Mm-hmm.
and I will be going out an educated woman or
Yes.
person in society.
Yes. So now you can go out and you can tell people about Josie and the Pussycats. You can go down the street. Hey, do you know the history of Josie and the Pussycats? Hey, do you know where Sugar Sugar came from? 'Cause I do. Loser. Wow. Wow.
Dang, I don't go around calling people loser, but I'll definitely share my wealth of knowledge.
So, Sabrina, I want to ask you a question. Do you know what the question is?
No,
You don't know what the question is? Good.
no.
So now that you learned about the history of Josie and the Pussycats and Sugar Sugar, are you interested in learning about a few more different animated bands per se? Do you think that there are any other animated bands that might have released besides that animated band that's like that was made to be animated? What's that band called that's very famous? The Gorillas.
Oh, gorillas are
Mhm.
really good.
Mhm, the
Okay.
Gorillas. So
Um,
yeah. Do you think there are other animated bands with as rich of a history as these Archie comics characters, or that are just as iconic as, say, Josie and the Pussycats? Because I literally searched up animated bands, and right after Gorillas, literally is the Archies, which is very interesting. No list.
Okay, so I won't say it's as rich of a history, but so I don't. So this is where it kind of gets a little gray, if you will. So you know Miku, right? Miku Hatsune Miku.
Mhm.
So she would be who I would say is next in fame, just
Mhm.
because she is so well known. But the difference between her and then the Archies and Gorillas is that she is completely made from pure like tech. Like
Mhm.
her voice and everything, it's all programmed. So it's all like an amalgamation of code that is used to make sounds, and it's like what I, in my brain at least, I may be wrong, but I consider it as what is like the true beginnings of like artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
And she was really popular, especially in the early 2000s, with her like the MMD, the Miku Miku dance
Mm.
culture of people using her model to create not only new music but also to create dances and concerts, and we're at a point now where with technology that she even has, like, tours,
Mhm.
and she's not a real person, there's not, like, a
Yeah.
person behind the curtain singing for her. She's, like, the first pure example of, like, code, if you will,
Mhm.
at least to my knowledge, of, like, just, like, pure electronic voice and
Mhm.
entity of, like, music online, so she would be, like, what I consider to be, at least in like, my time, like, the most popular along with Gorillaz. Those are, like,
Mhm.
my top 2 that I would say, and then, of course, like, it's not as rich of a history, but there is a new rise, if you will,
Mhm.
in what is, like, online fictional bands, if you will.
Mhm.
Because like, Riot Games from, like, Arcane and League of Legends, they have their bands, their girl group, and then the new male band, Heartsteel,
Oh, do
coming
they?
out pretty yes, I know. Heartsteel is I really liked their first song. It was really good.
Mm.
But and then there's also the rise in, like, again, just VTubers are a thing, so them
Mhm.
creating their, in a sense, online personas, and they now have record labels that create, like, idol groups modeled
Mhm.
around these
That
virtual
one's
characters.
kinda strange to me. I don't know. Oh, the idol groups, I don't know why I find that strange because you have groups like the Gorillas or whatever, but I feel like idol
Mhm,
groups feel more, and I guess it's because the nature of, like, especially K-pop idols
mhm,
being so, like, highly, I don't wanna say they're commercialized, is basically, like, when you're putting a K-pop group, you're putting a K-pop group to, like, sell things, and obviously that's every group, right? But K-pop takes it to a
mhm.
different level, so it's always kinda weird, and the music industry is already weird and icky. It's even weirder and ickier when you have, like, those with those animated, like, bands and stuff, because it's like, how much of it, where do we get to the point where it's just not so fake? You know what I mean?
No, I definitely agree. But,
Mhm.
back to the question, I guess, like, any that is, like, has, like, a as rich of a history, I like you said, other than the Gorillas with their lore, I don't know that they're, to my knowledge, I'm sure there's,
Mhm.
like, some underground old group that neither of us can think of or come to mind or know
Well,
about.
I searched it up, and there's another group that I recognize. Do you you probably can't guess it, but they're famous. You wanna know who they are?
Yeah, go.
Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Oh, I didn't think about that.
I didn't think about that either, but they're right there. The number 4 on the list after this group called Deathlock. I never heard of them. But,
Deadlock?
yeah, I don't know if they're from a
Hmm.
cartoon or something, but they're I should they were on Adult Swim. Um,
Mm.
yeah.
You know who I wanted to be a fully recognized band that we got post whatever they were involved in?
What?
I wanted the Hex Girls,
The Hex
okay?
Girls, OMG,
I was
yeah.
in love with them. I was madly in love.
Mhm.
Madly in love.
Hex
But, of
Girls is
course, like,
sweet.
we saw them pop up again,
Mhm.
especially I loved their appearance
Yeah.
in Mystery Incorporated where
Mm.
Daphne joined them.
Did you know that, well, this year or last year, we were supposed to get a new Scooby-Doo animated movie with the Hex Girls, but they scrapped it with all the HBO Max and Max stuff because they were scrapping all the movies. So they scrapped that movie, and they were gonna have new songs and everything on there. Did you know that?
I'm so upset. I'm so upset. Where are my Hex Girls?
Right. Their last appearance actually was in 2020. It was on Scooby-Doo and Guess Who. So we know the new Scooby-Doo movie. Scooby-Doo and Guess Who is basically the spiritual successor to that. It's not 30 minutes, but they get a whole bunch of modern guest stars and stuff on there. And they brought the Hex Girls on there, but they didn't sing any new songs. I was so disappointed. They didn't sing any songs on there. And I was like, come on, man, give me some new Hex Girl stuff because they are the band. Like, for real, they be having some good songs. I'm a Hex Girl. I'm a Hex Girl.
Yes.
Trap of Love. Trap of Love. What Daphne was singing. That one's my favorite. I was obsessed with that song when that first came out. I was like, wow, Daphne, you can
I
sing.
worshipped them.
They are they're a sexy group. That's a sexy animated group. We want to talk about like the blonde people and stuff like that. The Hex Girls, they sexy. Oh my gosh, I don't. That also came out wrong because I didn't mean it like that. It sounds, I did mean it like that too. So I don't know. Man, yeah, but
Anyway.
yeah. Let me shut up. But yeah. The Hex Girls,
So-
I really would like a Hex Girls comeback because I need an actual Hex Girls album, and like they have the same voice actor since the first movie, so like they all come back, and I think that's cool too when Scooby Doo does that. That's one thing I like about Scooby Doo. Like obviously they don't have all the same voice actors, right? Fred is the only character who had the same voice actor from the very beginning and was never changed except for like one time. And that was for that Scooby-Doo movie that came out in 2020.
Yeah, with what's his name instead?
Zac Efron. Good on Zac.
It wasn't. Was it Zac Efron?
Zac Efron voiced him in that movie. And obviously, like, they had, what was that Scooby-Doo show? A pup named Scooby-Doo, because they were children. But besides that, Frank Welker voiced Fred throughout the entirety of his character. Still does. Thank you, Frank Welker. I hope you play him for many, many, many more years to come. Yeah. That's great. We learned stuff, Sabrina. Are you ready to teach us your lesson? Like right now?
Yeah. My lesson.
What are you going to give us
What
a
lesson?
on? Well, I just did a
for
whole lesson
next
on music.
episode?
No, for like right now. What are you about to teach us?
That all good things come to an end, just like this episode. So, adios.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
I'm kidding.
Wow.
Yes. Thank you,
Wow.
everyone, for joining us for the So I'm a Fan of podcast. Of course, check us out. Have
We'll
fun.
see. No, we'll see you later because Sabrina is not a good teacher, but we'll get to that because once your episode comes where you need to teach us stuff, Princess Peach. You better be doing
I'm
that
so
research.
excited. I'm so good.
Better be doing that research.
Y'all, it's down the pipeline. It won't be until late March. But the new Princess Peach Showtime game is coming out. And you're crazy if you don't think I'm going to get cracked out on all the Princess Peach lore beforehand.
She's going to be giving us the whole history of the Princess Peach character from beginning to end, to the time of her birth, to the time of her death, even though she never died.
Oh my gosh, y'all.
Bye.
I'm going to get fussed at.
Yeah,
Bye.
she's going to get fussed at. Bye.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for the newest episode of the So I'm a Fan of podcast.
Don't forget to support us by leaving a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify so that we can reach out to as many people as we can.
And you can view our socials at IAFO Fans on X, formerly known as Twitter, TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, and Reddit.
And our merch at iafofans.com. We have lots of exciting things in store for you, so come and listen to us next time. See you, fellow fanatics.
Peace.